Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in 5 minutes' time. So just 5 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in just 4 minutes' time. So 4 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in just 3 minutes' time. So almost there, 3 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in just 2 minutes' time. So we are just 2 minutes away from the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in just 1 minute's time. So 1 minute to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. We have a really important topic we're going to be covering for you this morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you happen to be. And it's looking at next year. We're just a few days away. I think it was, for me, it feels like just a couple of weeks away when I was going, gosh, it's 2023. But the topic of the webinar, it's which elements of your program should you be reevaluating? And we have three fabulous speakers. But before I introduce them, just want to cover a couple of things. And the first is we have launched a Slack channel. So if we can move on to the next slide. We've been asked many, many times what we can do to bring the community together on a regular basis. And so we have launched a Slack community. It is only for people who are running significant channel programs. So it deals with all of those lovely things we're all struggling with, ecosystems and deal registration and incentives and all of the other things. We have a fabulous body of best practice and how-to information in the community, which is completely searchable. Everyone will be vetted before they join the community to make sure they are with exactly the right company. There'll be all sorts of networking opportunities within the community, guidance from experts. There'll be some fun and engaging channels in there as well. And also, very importantly, a career channel. So just scan that QR code, pop it in, and you will basically be taken to the Slack channel where you can register for the channel. So moving on to talk about the webinar today. These have always been very, very interactive, very engaging. So it's the last of the year. So let's keep it that way. So feel free to ask questions, make comments, etc. during the course of the webinar. We will pick up on those and interject those into the conversation as we move through the webinar. And now I'm going to introduce our panelists. And our first panelist is Ken Fox. And Ken is the CEO of Channel Mechanics. Ken's an accomplished leader with over 20 years experience in the channel. He's got a master's degree in software with an MBA, and he's transformed Channel Mechanics from a startup to an award-winning SaaS provider that's truly disrupting channel program execution. Ken's very passionate about enabling his customers to get the most from their partners. And while he's not doing that, in his spare time, he provides a non-stop taxi service for his 4 children. So Ken, tell us a little bit about Channel Mechanics.
Thanks very much, Rod. Looking forward to the session, very topical. Yeah, so Channel Mechanics, we're a channel program automation platform, PRM, channel enablement, that's what we do. And this topic is very relevant because for a lot of our customers, we actually fully automate their overarching program and all the sub-programs that go into that. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Excellent. And our second panelist is Richard Flynn, and Richard is the co-founder and CMO of the Spur Group. He's an industry veteran with nearly 30 years experience, during which time he's helped many companies in the tech industry shape and execute their channel strategies and go-to-market approaches. Currently, the group has nearly 250 go-to-market employees, sharing their expertise across a range of sales, marketing, channels, operations, and data projects. Richard is a firm believer that we face a new renaissance of channel innovation as companies redefine their go-to-market approach, as cloud solutions and remote workers become the norm. We see many new approaches as vendors satisfy a widening range of customer needs, embrace different types of partners, and build new novel ways of selling. And in his off time, Richard focuses on his family, painting, and architecture. He finds his once empty nest become crowded again as his college-age kids find their way home during these times. So, Richard, tell us a little bit about Spur Reply.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for everybody for coming today. We are, like you mentioned, a go-to-market consulting firm, and so our goal is to really help partners, develop, plan, execute, and measure their go-to-market strategy, including the channel space. So we've been fortunate enough to help, some very large companies and, some startups and everywhere in between, really implement an effective go-to-market strategy and channel play.
Fabulous. And our third panelist is Cassie Fuhr, and Cassie is the AVP of Solutions Consulting at E2Open. She also has over 16 years experience supporting brands, implementing and managing partner incentive programs, and she's worked with companies from Fortune 100 to niche and local market companies. She's worked on the vendor side in the capacity of services and operations, implementation, product management, and consultation. And Cassie also has a significant family. She spends her free time watching her 3 boys play all kinds of sports, while her husband also coaches them. So Cassie, tell us a little bit about E2Open.
Thanks, Rod, and hi, everyone. E2Open is a channel incentive management company designed to run your end-to-end channel practice needs. So we start with a very foundational layer of partner data and move on to incentives, rewards, marketing automation, collaboration, and user promotions, and more. And then wrapped around this technology is a massive team of dedicated global support in Malaysia, UK, and US. And these amazing teams are there to do things like claim audit, payments, fraudulent activity checks, partner support, anything you need help with to manage your programs. Additionally, all of this feeds up the funnel to our fully integrated platform, including planning, logistics, supply, and global trade, so you can know you are doing business with the right partners. And if you are a manufacturer of a physical good, then this gives you the complete visibility across your entire supply chain and how that impacts your indirect channel inventory and incentive needs.
Fabulous. And I thought we'd start. We just run our annual channel trends survey. And one of the questions we asked is which elements of your channel strategy is your organization looking to change or place more emphasis on in 2024? And just going to pop that up for a second so we can have a look and see what people said. And clearly, if you look at the results here, the number one focus, almost 50% of people looking to increase support for partner sales and marketing training, 45% looking at a change in emphasis on the support offered to different channel types. In other words, they're switching the channels that they're placing the emphasis on and where they're spending the money. Again, almost 45% targeted support for partners focused on key industry sectors, and almost the same amount, the top 4, a reevaluation of people's tiering strategies. So clearly a focus on verticalization, a focus on making our partners more competent as far as marketing is concerned, and also a really close look at tiering and what that means. And Richard, if I can bring you in to start with, as you look at these results, how does that gel with what you're hearing from your customers? And what would you say about what this is showing?
I think this is very consistent with what we see with our customers. I think that, we're kind of seeing 3 big areas that people are focusing on. Adjusting their partner programs. Quite often that is because they are looking to broaden their ecosystem, and they are looking to deal with more partners, and their program, be it their tier structure or the way that it's organized into tracks, just doesn't quite feel like it's working today. And so they're looking to make adjustments there. I think the second area that we really see, which I'm not actually sure, well, I guess it's the reallocation of types of marketing and of your co-op and MDF, is just really around channel incentives. Channel incentives are probably your biggest spend, in this area, maybe on the same course as, field heads that are managing partners. So, the CFO, the CEO, your CRO, they're always asking, am I really getting my money's worth? And in particular, today's time, with a bit of a shaky economy, people are always looking to make sure that they have that. And then the one thing that I don't see specifically on the list, although the AI is tied to this, is that people are really looking to figure out how internally they can improve their processes. We're seeing that Most people have less budget than they had in previous years with fewer headcount, but they're still being asked to grow and still looking to drive more revenue. And so efficiencies using AI and other process automation is really a focus that people are trying to do, and to do that in a way that's not impacting either partner satisfaction or customer satisfaction.
And Ken, what are you being asked for by your clients? Does this gel with what you're being asked to do?
Yeah, no, it does, Rod. I suppose I'll kind of just run through some of the key things we hear, and a lot of them line up with the survey indeed. So I suppose helping partners in terms of slightly different ways, considering trying to get revenue from, say, renewals. So the net retention or net revenue retention model, kind of focusing and building levers into the program around better success for your end customers, or supporting partners with better success for their end customers, as opposed to more of a focus on new sales and that, because people know in the current economy the expansion is probably easier to get than the net new. So see a lot of levers being an incentivization being put in around that space. One that isn't here, or maybe it is in some shape, but one we see starting to take shape is around sustainability. So we definitely see an increased emphasis on ESG and a sustainable supply chain, I suppose, and then associated with your programs. Vendors are starting to take into account things like their buybacks, their trade-ins, trade-ups, etc. And then overall, which probably is covered here, is very much around what we call partner program simplification. Now that's partner program simplification for the partner facing side, which in reality, actually, the programs are more complex because they've got more levers into them. You've got more partner types to cater for. And I suppose that's, where automation comes in to run those programs and cater for all of those types of scenarios, those go-to-market models or go-to-market paths that different partners of the vendors we work with have to cater for. Other ones we kind of see is a focus, definitely, and it's covered here, is around prioritizing partner expertise, around the training, the specializations, and indeed the associated services. We see quite a focus on that. And I suppose lastly then is doubling down on reporting partner ROI, or tracking partner ROI, to make sure, number one, the program is working, you have the right levers, and you're incenting the right partners, but also learning from those partners that are being successful and cross-pollinating that into as much of the rest of your ecosystem as you possibly can.
Excellent. And Cassie, if you look at this, one of in fact, the leader here is increased support for partner sales and marketing training. What are you seeing your customers doing, and what do you think the real issue is behind this?
Yeah, I think a lot of this has to do with this topic particularly, is the partner first movement, and really putting a human component around that too, and making sure that your partners are treated like your customers, and that you're doing things to make them happy, more revenue, right, simultaneously. So increasing the support for them, getting them the training they need, putting them into the classes and certifications that they need to make themselves more profitable. We're seeing a huge trend in that. I know we're taking a ton of data from LMS and different third parties to truly understand where your partners are today, so you know where they need to be tomorrow to be more profitable. And not just profitable at the end, but also doing the incremental steps that they need to get that other ARR. So that might be co-selling or co-marketing, collaboration with other people in the ecosystem, with agencies, vendors, with hyperscalers. But truly, we're working on, with many customers, is pulling that all in, understanding where they are today, and knowing where they need to get their partners tomorrow. So making that extra case for the partners, putting white glove service on in some cases, to ensure that the partners who need that support most, really get that. And those people with high potential really get to their full potential and reach that avenue they need to be in.
Excellent. And Sarah, if we can take the slide down now, but there's one topic, Richard, on here that's clearly important to people that we haven't really covered. A lot of people looking at their tiering strategy. What do you think's behind that?
Well, it's funny because I think that there's two different parts to that. I think one is that most programs are effectively ordered into tracks. So you may have an ISV track, a reseller track, an influencer track, however you kind of have them labeled. And what people are seeing is that partners are actually operating in multiple tracks, that they serve a wide range of different services to their customers. And a lot of tiering is kind of isolated to within the track. So it's how much revenue are you generating, or how many people are you having certified, or what's the level of referrals that you might be generating. And so being able to have kind of transparency between those multiple tracks, so that your best partners that might be sort of a middle partner in each of those tracks is really a top level partner, is one of the key things that we're seeing. I think the other thing that we're seeing is, let's face it, databases are much more capable today than they used to be. And so my ability to develop a personalized solution, as opposed to three broad categories of solution, is much stronger. And so there's a little bit of a belief that I can well, not a little bit of a belief, actually a fairly strong bit of belief, that I can actually have a lot more flexibility into my programs. I still have gates and fences in terms of who gets what, but that doesn't necessarily need to be tied to a specific tier or level like it used to require, several years ago.
And if I can jump in on that, Rod, thinking of that is, people want to simplify their program so much, and that's not to go against the fact that you also need to put some program tailoring into it for these types of skills, competencies, the way you're segmenting your partners, not the old school tiers, but the way that you're doing it off of their potential, their skills, et cetera. So that doesn't go against the simplification, but it does mean having a core program that you're agile enough to make some changes to cater to those routes to market and the way those partners are actually performing their business models, with like-minded partners, right? That's who you should be grouping together these days.
Yeah. Now, I think
that we've got an interesting comment coming in here. Obviously, there's been a lot of cuts in the industry. Potentially, there may be more. And Katie has come in with a really interesting question. With potential budget cuts, how do you recommend ensuring your channel partners are still satisfied with less means, incentives, MDF? I think if I can extrapolate that, where should people, if they are cutting, be cutting? How can they do more with less? What are the things that people should be looking at?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's definitely a topic we've been discussing a lot, Rod, with lots of customers over the last 9 months, I suppose. In terms of enablement, the automation, and I don't want to make it sound like an advert, but for having automation to help vendors do more with less is really important, because what that does is ultimately give you the data and insights into how the partners are performing, what's working, what's not working. And again, somebody put in there, I think it was Bill on the chat, is in helping the internal teams, the channel teams that are impacted most, get the best out of their partners. And I suppose the best description I can give around that is, we call them partner performance dashboards. So you work with a vendor and you say, okay, what are the 6 or 8 KPIs that are important? And obviously, Richard covered some of them there in terms of your revenue, your expertise. But those levers are changing. There's more of them. So people now are interested in different partner types, how many deal registrations, what does my pipeline look like, what's my renewal rate looking like, right through to, as people move their products into the cloud, now activations becomes more important than ever because people are selling the subscription model. So when you start to add all of those up, you really have to serve on the internal facing to the vendor view, is giving them the tools or the capability in a single page that this is the health of my partner. So if I'm an account manager and I have 20 accounts, I should be able to, rather than spending hours going across 5 different tools or systems, I should be able to quickly look at a page and see this partner is doing really well. This one is actually not far behind. And guess what? If they sold another 50K, they get up a tier or a level, or as somebody said, that, you know, they're differentiated slightly differently. So now you're helping your account team, which is probably a small account team compared to what it was a year ago or more, be more efficient. And I suppose the most important thing there is being efficient, but also being very sales focused, because now they can see what the partner needs to do to get that to that next step of the partner program or tier or differentiator that it is that gets them that incentive, extra MDF, whatever it might be. And then very briefly, just turn that around. And the other side of the fence is the partner facing side. And I always say to people, it's literally two sides of the same coin. The partner will only see their view, whereas the account manager might see, you know, 20 partners, whatever. But again, you're helping the partner at a glance understand where they are with respect to your program tiers or point system or whatever it is that you use, and what do they need to do to get to the next step, because they get additional discount, they get additional benefits. And it's the old thing, I suppose, of you know, a picture tells 1,000 words. So you got to make it very easy for your partners to work with you. That to me would be one of the biggest things.
And Cassie, if I can bring you in, one of the things we hear is obviously budgets are under pressure, the teams are under pressure. One of the things companies are tending to do is spend more emphasis on key partner groups and perhaps less on areas like the long tail. Is that what you're seeing with your customers?
We're seeing a little bit of that. We're seeing more about targeted incentives for those groups that are going to have a much more higher impact or more potential there. And, you know, thinking about doing more with less, you know, your resources within a brand, within a channel practice have to make decisions very quickly for these types of fund allocations, MDF, et cetera. And so really bubbling up through either AI or just simply data mining in the background, you really have to understand, how can I make decisions very, very quickly so that I can move on to the next one, and accurately. So if you think about how data is going to show you what are the best activities based on previous performance, or say put some AI in there to make those recommendations and prescriptive approvals bubble up, that's going to help. But Rod, you know, to your more direct question, I think it is more targeted incentives for those groups that are going to perform well, but not undermining the long tail completely. I think, you know, people still have to, there's always a tomorrow. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. So understanding what is it that's going to provide a very, very large impact on your long tail. And so that, you know, in the future, in tomorrow's state, they are going to be those high performers, and then you can do more with them. But you still gotta give them a bone so that they can continue to work with you. Not go to your competitors. We know the market's tight. We know market share is difficult to retain. So lots of targeted incentives, but certainly we cannot neglect the long tail, and you've got to do something there with a high impact that doesn't cause you much pain on the resource side.
Richard, one of the things that came out in that initial survey was it looks like more and more people are really beginning to focus on key vertical areas. I know a lot of partners are building vertical expertise. How does that affect the partner program? How should it affect what people on the call should be doing to take advantage of that?
You know, like a lot of what I think we're talking about in general terms, having a set of data and then being able to apply that to how you're interacting with the partners and how you're personalizing your content and your focus and your communications and your engagement always produces a better return. And so, you know, the thing that we have seen is that as people start saying, look, I want to go after this, that means I want to direct the campaign to people who are already in the market. I want to be able to talk to them and say, you know, if I'm in the medical industry, I want to be able to explain why doctors and end users in that community see perhaps a unique value to my product. And so being able to do that in a very measured, effective way is critical. I think, you know, it wasn't quite the question, but one thing that I would perhaps add is, but also remember that the partner is probably more of an expert in that industry or vertical than you are. So where we've seen companies spend a lot of training dollars on a lot of things is, hey, we're going to help teach you how to be effective, or we're going to come in with our set of experts and, show you how to be more effective in this vertical market. And unless it is something, pretty earth-shattering, most partners dismiss that because they say, no, you're providing the technology. I'm already providing the expertise for the vertical market. Just keep that in mind. But otherwise, I think those are the key things that we're seeing.
And Ken, we all talk about ease of doing business, but if you look at all the customers that you deal with and what they're doing, what are some really specific areas they can be looking at where it really is going to make a significant difference for their partners, and their partners are going to go, wow, what they just did made my life so much easier dealing with vendor X?
Yeah, no, great question, Rod, and that's something we spend a lot of our time on. Basically, is working with our customers who are the vendors, and they obviously have the thousands and thousands of partners. But I always start the conversation by, a partner has choices. They will typically work with many vendors, and you want to win that partner mind share and ultimately their end customer revenue. It isn't always based on price, right? So people need to, I suppose, understand it's ease of doing business. Where it comes in is the partner's time, right? So, and time is money, so that's cost to the partner. They just want to get in, register their deal, claim their MDF, understand where they are in your program, all of those good things. So what we kind of do is narrow that down to say it starts with I'm taken past the point now of you've onboarded the partner is now engaged and working with you, right? So it starts with your partner portal. It's got to be, we very much focus on a persona-driven experience for the partner. When the partner lands, they get to see exactly what they need to see and nothing more than that. Often people try, vendors are very inward focused. I often say they've got loads of great stuff, but they try to dump all of that out in front of everybody because they love it. The partner isn't interested in all of it. They're interested in what they're interested in. As Richard just said, they're the ones that are better trained for the market than the vendor. So just support them with what they need to see and do, whether that's registering a deal, claiming their MDF, etc. And then when they go to move from the portal into the programs, it's very much a guided selling approach, we often say. So if I'm registering a deal, these are the 3 things I need to do, bang, bang, bang. If I'm making an MDF claim, show them what their budget is, give them their activities that they can do, and so on. So again, that's the kind of on the partner side. And don't focus too much, try and get them to the portal, do everything online, because, typically they're not going to heed emails or spreadsheets or anything like that because they're bombarded. So, the whole partner journey, get them on the portal, get them to do what they need to do and get out. And again, I always come back then to, I touched on it earlier, but it's not, helping the partner, it's also helping the channel account team or the people that manage the partners do their job better as well. So very similar conversation is enabling them to enable the partner and become sales focused, because all too often account teams are short of staff, short of resources, and they're scrambling around, trying to create their own reports, their own dashboards, going to 4 or 5 different systems to do that. Really get them like having almost an internal portal that everything is on, that they can do the best for the partner.
And Cassie, just bringing you in on this one, but also from a slightly different slant. We want to understand what's causing problems for our partners. We want to understand how to make their lives easier. What are the sorts of things we should be doing to really understand what the bottlenecks are? What are the things we're doing where the partner's just going, for goodness sake, why are you doing that to me?
Well, I think you have to communicate with your partners, number one. And that can happen in a variety of different ways. You could have surveys that you put out, not bombarding them. They don't, we know that if we get a 20-page survey, 20-question survey, let alone in our email, we're not going to fill that out. But you can send them random 1-2-liner questions, right? That can be captured in different tools and or email if you don't have a tool to do that. Hearing straight from them is the best thing. You know, if you have quarterly calls or check-ins or something like that, of course, the conversation one-on-one with different partners is always valuable. So hearing from them specifically, I think, is the number one most important thing you need to hear about. But there's also indicators that something is not right. So if logins go down, if you're looking at your KPIs, which may include logins, you know, engagement, MDF spend, requesting for different funding allocations, et cetera, all of that, if that's trending down, there's got to be a reason. So what is that reason? Is engagement too difficult? And so your partners are, you know, going to participate in other programs or just forgetting your channel incentive completely. You know, things like that you need to make sure you're paying attention to. So watch the indicators, but also proactively talk to your partners to understand and hear it directly from them.
Right.
And Richard.
I have something that I want to add. I think, look, as I mentioned in the chat, I think before you even asked this, I'm a huge believer in going and talking to the people and asking what their problems are. But, you know, let me give you a couple of tactical things that we can see. And first of all, for those who aren't familiar with Spur Reply, we are not a systems vendor. So we do not, you know, have a PRM or something along those lines that we're trying to sell. But go look in your organization for where you're managing things through Excel spreadsheets, okay? That most often means that the group is isolated, they aren't sharing information, they aren't working off of common information, and everybody doesn't know what's going on. So that's where you have your pockets of information. And if you can build those into a PRM or some sort of centralized receptacle for that information, now everybody within your organization starts working on the same information, and you can display that internally and externally. Look at some of the turnarounds that you've got on your processes. We've worked, you know, recently with a company whose quoting process for deal registration was almost 2 weeks from a turnaround of this is, I need a price to this is what I'm going to get for the price for many companies that were in that process. If I'm a partner, I'm not going to wait 2 weeks to hear a pricing. I'm going to move on to a different vendor. So make sure that you've got efficiency and streamlining, and then asking yourself, why am I doing some of the things that I'm doing? In this company's case, it had to go to a first line, then it had to go to a second line, then it had to go to the local regional person, then the VP needed to sign off on it, then it needed to go to finance. And they could just streamline all of those things to really make it more effective. You know, look at how discoverable your information is. Go to your portal and say, hey, I know that I've got a great campaign or a great piece of collateral. How easy is it for me to find it if I don't know where it is in the file structure? Do I have to go, you know, 5 levels down, or can I just type in, I need a document that does X, and it'll pop up and show me those types of things? So there's a couple of things that you could probably do very quickly. And if I like to think of it like going to a restaurant. What are the things that I hate at a restaurant? If the server never shows up, the food takes forever to get to the plate, it's cold and crappy when you get that food, you know, and then think about those same things, you know, from your partner program. Is it easy to contact somebody? Do they all have the right information? Do they, you know, take forever to respond or get something done? Is it really hard to find the things that we're looking for? And you probably already know what those problems are, and then focus your energy there to really help, you know, solve those things quickly.
Excellent. And Ken, if you look at this whole piece of ease of doing business, there's a horrible problem. We've got more and more partner types wanting more and more from us as a company. At the same time, we want to be really easy to do business with. The temptation is just to add more and more and more to the program until the partner just goes, hey, enough. So how do you build that program so you can address the needs of different partner types without making it incredibly overly complex for everyone?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Rod, and something, you know, people talk about single global programs. Honestly, I'm at it 20 years, Rod, and I've never seen one, right? So most of our customers will have, and certainly as they scale up, it's not a single program. You can call it multiple programs or programs within programs, whatever you call it. But the way we look at that is when you automate the leveling program, and a partner lands in a particular program based on their attributes, right? Everything from, you could have an SI program to a traditional VAR program to an MSP program, and so on, the list goes on. This is kind of back to the ease of doing business. So when a partner lands on your portal, they fit into that program. And I'll cover in a couple of minutes, because sometimes partners do fit into multiple programs and you got to figure out the go-to-market model for that particular transaction. But generally speaking, partners will fit into those individual programs or sub-programs of the master program. And that's kind of the best way that's the most successful way I see it done, because that partner often doesn't know there's 5 programs. They only know the program that they're included in, and therefore you only show them the benefits of that program if they're registering a deal for that program, or if they're an influencer and they're just putting in a record for something they're influencing on or referring, etc. That's all they need to know. And then you often have scenarios as well where you have larger partners that could in one transaction be behaving as a reseller, another one as a influence in the deal, or a co-selling, or an MSP, or whatever it might be. Typically how we do that is, you don't know when they come in, which transaction they're performing. So you got to ask them, or else you have to magically figure it out by the transaction type they're doing, and that fits into the particular program. So again, you kind of show them for the program that they fit into, you show them the details of that when they land. And again, back to the earlier point I made, that's both internal and external. So often you will have, for your leveling program, you will have multiple back-end dashboards to show where a CDW fits, for example, 5 different programs versus somebody else might just sit in one program. Okay.
Excellent. And Cassie, one of the other things that came out of the survey is people are they're not just looking at which partners they support with marketing, they're looking at the types of marketing activities that they're prepared to support with the partners. And what are the key trends that you're seeing there?
Well, we know that events have gone down. We know digital obviously is consistent. And so those types of activities that are being kind of prescribed through technology. So, and real quick, Rod, back to one of Kenneth's points, is that your technology should be able to do some of that work for you. Your vendor should be able to do some of the work for you, meaning if a partner logs in through a couple different pieces of information that's captured through data, they should know what it is that they should be seeing. If that partner plays multiple roles, through the first click or answer of say they're filling out a request for funds or something like that, your technology should be agile enough to say, okay, this is the route to market, this is the program, this is what should be seen in terms of activity types and such. And that goes with marketing as well. Different areas, different geographies, different cultures are all going to have some nuances there. And so when someone is going to do marketing tactics, say through a marketing automation platform, then the technology should be sophisticated enough to look at some of that previous data and bubble up a prescriptive approach to what should be recommended to that particular partner to go to market with. But yeah, Rod, I think, just capitalizing on the digital trend, less of events and such. And that's why also related to that is where the funds are being spent. We've talked a lot about doing more with less budget and being more intentional in what you are funding. And that's particularly true with not just MDF dollars, but any of, say, your marketing tactic incentives that you might be doing. So every social someone does, they're getting rewarded. Every training someone does for marketing, they're getting rewarded. But you want to make sure you're rewarding those best behaviors and those best tactics, so that at the end of the day, you're teaching the partner to do what is going to be most beneficial for you both mutually.
Excellent. And Richard, I'm going to come on to a topic that I know you're really passionate about, and that's AI.
Yep.
Everybody says it's going to make a huge difference, and yet when we asked many of the biggest companies in the industry what were they doing about AI, the number of companies that had substantial AI implementations within their channel org was tiny. Why do you think that is? Where can AI really have a place? Where should people be looking?
Well, this is a soapbox issue for me. So if I'll try to be brief because this is
Well,
probably
we'll cut you short if you go too long.
yeah,
How's that?
yeah. So that works. So look, I believe, and we talked about this in a different forum the other day. I believe that AI is the single biggest thing that's going to happen to this channel space for it within the next 2 years. So I think it is on the scale of actually, I believe it's going to go beyond the scale of the movement from legacy to cloud. And the main reason is that this is going to fundamentally change the buyer's experience, and therefore the partner's experience, and therefore the employee experience within your organization. It's going to be pervasive. Now, that said, let's be realistic. And this is the challenge that I think to answer your question that people have today is nobody's quite sure what it does, what it means, what it happens. So your CEO or somebody is saying, I want to invest in AI. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't really know. I just want to invest in AI. I'm familiar with everybody out there saying that that's what I need to do. And that's a true statement. So, from what we see, start small. Look for AI that helps you segment better. Look for AI that improves the productivity of your content creation. Look for AI that helps you personalize information that you're delivering to people. All of those things are available today. They're generally not very expensive. There's something that you can focus on in a bite-sized portion. And we really recommend that you start there because, ChatGPT is a great example. In less than half a year, they got 1 billion users on ChatGPT. Compare that to Netflix, which we probably all have and use. It took 10 years for people to move from, DVDs to streaming technology for Netflix to have 1 billion users. So the pace on this is going to be just huge and fast. And, you probably need to be starting today and drawing up your roadmap for what that means so that in 2 years or 3 years, you have an AI-driven capability, even though right now it's going to have a lot of white space on that, roadmap, trying to figure out exactly what's the enabling technology that's going to make that happen, because it'll come that quickly.
And Ken, if you look at this, what are the start points for your clients? What are the sort of 1 or 2 key areas where they're beginning to go, okay, I can use AI here and it's really going to make a difference?
Yeah, it's kind of like Richard said, it's still very early, Rod, and that's probably why the survey reflected that. Most companies we work with are definitely just still trying to figure it out. And as Richard said, somebody very senior is saying we need this, but it's what do you need? So a lot of people that we're working with are definitely still strategizing on getting their AI story in shape. Even for ourselves, Rod, I suppose we're using it in a number of forms, but again, it's more around content creation and helping like a chatbot to help with partner journeys, for example, stuff like that. Where I do see some really good use cases that we're trying to figure out, and we don't have this quite figured out yet, is looking at the big data through AI basically to figure out, if a partner is successful, why are they successful versus another partner, and trying to figure out those attributes to help somebody, a VP of channels to say, okay, these are my 10 best. Why are they my 10 best? And what do I need to do to make the next 10 as good as them, and so on. So there's tons of uses for it, but right now it's definitely early days for both us and indeed most of our customers.
Cassie, I'll bring you in on the AI front in just a second, but question about incentives. Individuals or organizations or both, how do you make that decision?
Yeah, I think it's oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I saw the question there, but I was talking. So yeah, I would say just briefly answer the question, and Cassie, I'll let you in, is much the incentives that are paid out, and maybe this is not the way the question was meant, but I would say 90% of incentives are still paid to companies, with maybe 10% to individuals in terms of value, maybe not in terms of quantity. So there definitely has been a trend towards more spiffing, as we call it, targeting the individual, and that's everything from selling to training to being part of a deal. And some of those spiffs have got quite complicated because you got to target the right person that's influencing the deal. And just really brief example is, spiffing the sales engineer or the technical people behind the salesperson, because they're the ones that are ultimately contributing to getting you preference on a specific deal. But just to wrap it up and give it back to you, Cassie, is the value of incentives is probably 90% in favor of the company or the partner entity, and 10% to individuals in terms of value would be kind of what I see.
And what are you seeing, Cassie?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that, what Ken has said. And the thing with kind of the user-based incentives is that, well, like you brought in influencers, they don't want to be rewarded like your engineer or your point of sale person. They might want access to different material or learnings from your company, or maybe an event, something that they're doing that they can go to for free. They don't want to go to, earning all these points and then go to a rewards catalog and, take a trip. They want something a little bit more substantial and more meaningful to your business so they can continue to do what they're doing. So I agree with the 90-10%. That seems about, accurate to us. It's certainly at the partner level, the org level, most often. And I do think there is a trend away from some of these rewards catalogs, things like that people were trending so much towards just a few years back.
Yeah, just sorry to jump in again, Robert. Definitely cash is by far and away more than points. It's again 90-10 or more, I would say for sure. What Cassie said there is definitely, it's cash is king right now and has been for about 2 years.
And Rod, on the AI, if I can touch upon that too, just a couple other additions, is that when you're really trying to put it into practice, I mean, a lot of the technology just isn't caught up quite yet to some of the different, wants and needs and theories that people are trying to instill. In a couple years, in a next year, in a couple months, it's going to look completely different, of course. So we absolutely have to be prepared with a roadmap. But there are the small things, the incremental value that could add a lot of ROI to your programs. And I mentioned it before, but being more prescriptive on the funds that you're allocating. So using AI to kind of mine that data and tell you what is it that should be approved based on what we've seen in the past and kind of some of the economical states and factors and influences where we're at today as well. But pulling all that together to understand and making decisions much more quickly as, a CAM who might be looking at an activity. I want to know, what is it that I need to be approving first? But if AI and some of the data behind the scenes does that work for me and can bubble up the best ideas to the top, even better. I can do my job more quickly and more accurately in many cases.
Yeah, and Rod, again, sorry to jump in, but to Sandra's question there in the chat window, what I've seen there is, yeah, definitely don't go around the company. That'll not make them too happy. But what we have seen a lot is companies that say you can't incentivize our individuals. A lot of our customers, what I've seen them do is say, okay, but will you as a company take the spiff? And I would say nearly always they say yes. So then what you do is you agree who is the individual. So it could be, somebody in finance or whatever. They can still get the spiff, participate in the spiff program. It goes to the company and you agree with them. Then, you can raffle that in your own company or buy everybody a dinner or whatever. You don't have to agree exactly what it is, but just get, general agreement that they will give that back to their staff that supported you. And that's worked quite well. I've seen it literally, hundreds and hundreds of partners, certainly in Europe. That's a good way to work around it. Okay.
And we're almost out of time. So I'm just going to do a quick round robin for the three of you. We're looking to 2024. We've covered a heap of ground during the call. Richard, if you look at across the board, what are the one or two things that people really should be focusing on, in your opinion, when it comes to their channel program for 24?
Obviously, it just depends on the size of your organization and what you have in play today. But I would say make sure you have a PRM. If you don't have a PRM already, that would be job number one. Job number two is look at your internal processes, figure out where you have a poor partner experience or inefficiency internally, and use the tools that are available to reduce the friction that's in the process. And I think that the third one is look at your partner program and build a roadmap for what are the types of improvements that you think you need to have over the next 3 years, and start carefully and selectively, investing in those areas and communicating those enhancements both to your internal leadership and to your partner base, but focus on what are the outcomes that those changes are going to drive, rather than couch it as we need to modernize our program or we need to, do something along those lines.
Excellent. And Ken, the same question for you. What would be the 1 or 2 things that you really think people should be focusing on in 2024?
Yeah, I think we hear, a bit like AI, we hear a huge amount about CX, customer experience. So I think partner experience, which leads into the whole ease of doing business, is really, really important. You really need to focus on that. And it's a bit like Richard said there, don't just focus on it for the sake of focusing on it. Think about what it is that you want to achieve, and then you have, set yourself those goals and go deliver against those goals. And lastly, Rod, I suppose, is, again, I sound like I'm repeating myself, but that's not just the partner facing side. Really help your channel teams be more efficient. Don't forget them in the journey. They're the ones on the cold face at the day-to-day with the partners. So think about enabling your internal teams every bit as much as your partners.
Excellent. And Cassie?
Simplification for sure. It sounds easier said than done, though. I know that some people look at that and think, how do I even start? So look at where the areas are that you're spending, much time on from an admin perspective, or what you're hearing from the partners that are too complicated, because they won't engage if it's not simplified. That also goes back to ease of doing business with, right? You need engagement levels up. So you don't want to overcomplicate that thing. That program. And something that lends right off of that is simplification, is be ready to be agile. So you need to set yourself up in your program structure so that you can make the changes that are needed for the consistent evolution and changing of the landscape that we see in this business. Think about that from a technology standpoint. So you want to make sure that your technology and your vendors allow for easy change management, but also in your rules, in your guidelines, in the requirements that your partners have to perform in that particular program, and then also the reward types that you're offering for those. So just make sure that while you're simplifying things, you leave yourself some room to be agile, so that you're not stuck in such a straight motion that you can't evolve as things are so rapidly changing as we all know it.
Fabulous. Cassie, Ken, Richard, thank you for a fabulous final webinar of the Channel Focus program for the year. Lots of really, really excellent insights. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else on the call did too. So thank you very, very much indeed. And thank you everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful new year. And as you leave, you'll also see a survey coming up. Please do take 2 or 3 minutes to complete that survey. But once again, Cassie, Ken, Richard, thank you very, very much.
Thanks very much, Rod. Happy
Thank you.
holidays. Bye-bye.